Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of Savage World settings, Evernight and Sundered Skies. First, Evernight. Now, I'd heard some good things about Evernight, so I wanted to take a look at it. And it opens up with a chapter describing the races that you can play in the setting. And they did a really nice job of emulating the 3rd edition D&D races, the standard, plug standard elves, dwarves, humans, halflings, half-elves, half-orcs, the whole thing. And then they began to describe some of the character classes' abilities, the edges, available flaws, hindrances, things like that. And they gave a nice monotheistic faith, which had 2 different branches for as player character options. One which is kind of a paladin-like group, and the other was kind of the classic cleric. And one of the edges that they could pick up if you were a member of one of these these 2 groups, which is one of the ways you can get access to divine magic in the game, would allow you to, any melee weapon you hold be sheathed in flame, which is a very cool visual and darn useful. And then when that chapter ended, the next chapter, I am assuming, was going to open up into the setting itself. And it did. But you see, the Evernight setting is one meta adventure. It's one large, intricately tied together adventure that goes from A to Z. And if you follow all the points along the way, everything turns out good for the PCs. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. The background they had given prior to this chapter made it sound very much like a fairly standard fantasy world, kind of a slightly, there was an ancient horrible battle in the past kind of thing, which you've seen 100 different times in different fantasy comics and novels and role-playing games. So there wasn't anything really to show me prior to turning to that new chapter that things were about to bang a left turn. And I have to be honest, that's when I stopped reading, because it isn't a type of adventure that I'm interested in. It isn't a product that I'm interested in. I prefer sandboxes. I want a setting presented to me with lots of options, and then I want to go play in it. I'm not really into a setting which is very focused. This is where things go. It's not my idea of fun. So it could be a great product. I'm not dismissing it, but it isn't one that I have any interest in. However, Sundered Skies is a different matter. This is a sandbox. And, in a somewhat similar vein as the first one I just mentioned, it is also a post-apocalyptic world. But this post-apocalyptic event was the destruction of an entire planet. It was literally blown apart. And parts of this planet are floating in this kind of ethereal space where there's a light that comes from above, but no one knows where it's from. And where one of the largest shards is up above the top, and it rains water down upon all those below you. And there are animals and plants that live in this void between these islands of little fragments of the planet. And people fly ships and use nets to scoop up the animals and plants as food sources. It is really flavorful. It is wonderfully unique. I mean, I've read some nice settings where they have different islands, like on an ocean. But there's something much cooler about the whole idea of these little segments of planets in a 3-dimensional matrix, far apart from each other, only linked by people going from point A to point B in different kinds of ships. Now, the races available in this setting are the Draken, which are a reptilian race linked to dragons, and you can pick up edges as you go, which will turn you into a dragon. You can pick up things like a tail, and claw attacks, and wings, and a breath weapon. And the fact that you can play a dragon is just too darn cool. There are dwarves, humans, orcs. There are also elves, and there are the Wildings. Now, the Wildings are interesting. They are essentially magically uplifted animals. And there's a whole long list of them, all kinds of different animals that you could use. So, and it would be very easy to add in any animal that wasn't included that you think should be included. And the elves consider them to be their property. And the Wildings are simply to be used at the discretion of the elves. And any Wilding that doesn't want to be used by the elves and tries to escape is hunted down and slaughtered. These are not friendly elves. The elves also use biotechnology in other ways, like their ships are living, that kind of thing. The dwarven ships are more, earthy, rocky-based, and human ships are more ship-based, like based on actual real-world ships. And I'm going to give quite a few things I'm going to run down here. Of course, you get your making characters, races, hindrances, edges, gear, trading, because none of these little islands really have all the things they need to function, so trading is driven by this fact. So lots of trading from point A and point B means lots of pirates between point A and point B. Good thing, drives storylines. Whole section on sky ships, which is very cool because the idea of ships flying through an air-breathing space is just really spiffy. The section on religion and magic, religion in the skies, other gods, new spells, setting rules rather. This glow that I mentioned that just comes from above but no one really knows where it comes from, if you're exposed for it too long, it starts to make you aggressive. You get angry. You eventually become enraged. And eventually you achieve glow madness. If you can protect yourself from it for a good part of the day when you're sleeping and things like that, and minimize your exposure, you'll be okay. But if you can't, it will drive you mad. It essentially turns you into a Reaver from Firefly, which I thought was kind of cool. We have skyship rules, repairs, docking with islands, information about crews, travel and encounters, and a gazetteer dealing with the different sections that you might be visiting and islands and things like that. Then they have specifically islands explained like Aria, Bridgeways, the Ice Islands, the Draining Sea, Canopy, Plenty, the Shattered City, the Void, which is all very cool. And then they have an entire section. It covers from page 79 to 135, which is nothing but adventure seeds. Some are just, less than a page, and some are a page and a half long. And that is just so incredibly useful. Because not only is it presenting you with things you can use right out of the box, but it's giving you all kinds of templates to use to make your own adventures. Excellent resource. Then we have characters and creatures, like salvaging things from when the world was whole, because there's lots of stuff still out there that you can dig up and sell or use for yourself. Heroes and villains, which is a really nice selection of NPCs or possibly PCs, always useful. Character sheets, ship and ally sheets, I had an itchy nose, and an index, also very handy. So, Sundered Skies just nails every single note when it comes to presenting the player with a unique setting in a sandbox environment with just so many options available to you. You can be out there saving wildlings from the elves. You can be out there hunting pirates. You can be elven slavers trying to hunt down wayward wildlings. You can be orc thugs or crew members on a ship, and you're just starting out as novices. You could be dwarven miners trying to seek out that vein of metal that your ancient ancestors had found, and now you're trying to find the part of the planet it's still on, and you want that vein back. There are just so many things you could do with Sundered Skies. I was really impressed by it. I have to say that I would say this is a must-have if you're looking for a fantasy setting to set in a Savage World game, because I can't imagine you getting bored with this setting anytime soon. It's very interesting. It's got a lot of things to hang stuff off of, a lot of hooks out there you can use. And it's using a system which I think is very fluid and very useful for coming up with your own ideas relatively quickly. So I highly encourage anyone interested in fantasy or the Savage World system to check this out.